evening, everyone. My name is Rhonda Binda. I'm your Deputy Borough President for our great borough of Queens. And on behalf of Borough President Donovan Richards Jr., we would love to thank all of you for joining our Parent Advisory Board meeting this meeting. This evening, we'll be talking about a very important topic for many parents and students, and that is how to fund your college education. We will discuss the process to apply for financial aid, plus the different types of financial aid available, like FAFSA, NYS TAP, Excelsior Program, NYS Dream Act, scholarships, and we'll talk about loans as well. We'll also discuss important deadlines for the important role that high school college counselors play when a student applies to college. I remember when I was applying to college, it was a process that was hard to demystify, and we relied on neighbors. So we're so happy to be able to bring this program to you to help navigate. Tonight, I would like to introduce you to the speakers we have. Vice President for Enrollment and Student Retention at Queens College, Richard Alvarez, and Assistant Director of Queens College Hub Financial Services, Lisa Moy Medina. And they are joined by Rizwana Kosar, who is the Assistant Director at Queens College Hub Financial Aid Services, and Nandi Sakai, who is Enrollment Specialist at the Queens College Hub Financial Aid Services. We're also joined by Jeremy Wang, who is a Townsend Harris High School counselor. So get ready, grab a piece of paper and pencil tonight, because you'll be getting a lot of great funding information for your child's college education. Cha-ching. Before we begin, I would like to introduce you to our staff that is on tonight. We have Monica Gutierrez, our Director of Education, who many of you all already know how fabulous she is. Deborah Dillingham, who's our Queens Panel for Education Policy, or PEP representative. Ariella Davidoff, former education coordinator and now gender justice coordinator. Carolina Gill and Tiffany Easton, who will be monitoring the Zoom. Thank you as always. Chris Barca, our press representative, and will be monitoring our meeting on our home webpage. And Aldo Grillo, who is the tech director, all making this possible to be viewed again on YouTube. For the parents, students, and everyone live in the chat room, please write in your topic-related questions for Q&A portion of the meeting. Please make sure the questions are written clearly and concise. Thank you. Just some quick announcements. If you'd like to join us at the Queens Rises Against Hate rally on May 2nd, this Sunday at 12:30 p.m., organized by Borough Hall and Borough President Donovan Richards Jr. and Congresswoman Grace Meng, to march in solidarity against anti-Asian hate and violence, please RSVP at queensbp.org/RSVP. Thank you. Also, our next Parent Advisory Board meeting will be on the 27th of May on the rights of special needs children and how to better advocate for your child with an IEP. That will be a very important Parent Advisory Board that many parents will not want to miss. Also, the application to apply for Queensborough President appointee positions for the community education councils for each school district in Queens is now available. Our office application deadline is Friday, May 21st. If you're interested in applying, please email education@queensbp.org and an application will be mailed to you. Now, before we begin our program on college financial aid, we have Deputy Chancellor Adrian Austin from the Department of Education and Executive Director of Family and Community Engagement at the Department of Education, Sadeh Kemempur, who to say a few brief words for those who would like to apply to represent your school district on the Community Education Council. Please speak briefly because we have a full program on the college financial aid process. Thank you. We'll start with Deputy Chancellor Adrian Austin. Congratulations on your appointment. And by the way, we'd also like to follow on with Sadeh Kemempur Amor, who's also from DOE. Thank you, and please feel free to unmute now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Borough President, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you to all of our parents, families, caregivers who are on the line. I am so excited because next week, the New York City Department of Education will be hosting what we hope will be the largest online municipal election in history, the 2021 Citywide and Community Education Council elections. This year, more than 1 million parents are eligible to vote, and we are encouraging parents to vote through their NICSA accounts in the comfort of their own homes. This week and next week is all about getting out the vote. We have mailed flyers to families. We've advertised across the city from buses to radio shows, news media, and more. And next week, all families will receive a robocall from the chancellor reminding you all to vote. Voting starts this Saturday, May 1st, and it continues until Tuesday, May 11th. I will be dropping some links in the chat, hopefully, so it can orient you. We have online on our website video guides to voting in the 2021 elections. That's in all of our DOE 9 languages. You can access that video on Parent University. We have a video guide on how to sign up for a NICSA account. We have voting FAQs on our website. We've got all of the candidate forum videos on our website, and then candidates have posted their own statements so that you can evaluate and decide who you're going to vote for during the voting period. We also have our in-person voting sites. And so for Queens, there's going to be 4 locations where parents can go if they're not able to access NICSA, if they need extra hands-on support. There are 4 sites where parents can go in person. Those are Queens School for Leadership and Excellence, PS 112 Dutch Kill School, the American School of Heroes, and PS 42R Vernon. Again, I want to thank you. This is going to be the largest CCEC election in DOE history. We have a record-breaking 1,750 parents running for seats. We're really excited about it. And so we urge everyone to please get out the vote, meaning vote yourself, and encourage all of your friends and everyone you know that's a parent in the New York City system to please vote. Thank you very much for your time. And I know we're also very excited. We have an executive director, a new executive director of our Office of Family and Community Empowerment. She comes with lots of experience in community organizing. I know you want to get right to your programming. I'm not sure if she's on because we weren't sure if we had enough time for her to be able to really introduce herself. But I know that she was very excited about being here tonight. And I'm not sure she's going to be able to make it because we kind of told her we didn't think that there was enough time. But she certainly wants to get to know all of the Queen parents and would look forward to coming on another day.
No worries. Thank you, Deputy Chancellor. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you our guest speaker, Richard Alvarez, who is Vice President for Enrollment and Student Retention at Queens College, who will do the presentation on college financial aid process and the different financial aid available, along with Lisa Moy Medina, who is Assistant Director of the Queens College Hub Financial Services. After their presentation, we will be joined by Mr. Jeremy Wang, who is a Townsend Harris School Counselor, to talk about important college deadlines and the important role that high school college counselors play for their high school students applying to college. After the presentations, we'll have our Q&A.
Am I on?
Thank you, Richard.
Good evening, good evening. And thank you very much to you, the Borough President, and the whole team for welcoming us this evening. We're delighted to be here. And good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is healthy and safe and adjusted to our new way of living in this virtual environment, hopefully not for too long. We are delighted to be here, and hopefully through tonight's presentation, we'll give you some general information about what to expect moving forward. If nothing else is remembered of what we say tonight, please remember this. There is lots of money available to every student to go to college. So if that is the only thing you remember, is that yes, there is a lot of money available, and money should not be the reason why a student does not go to college. So this evening, I'm joined by a couple of my team members, and we have a PowerPoint presentation for you that we will make available to the Borough President's office. They could post it on their website or email it out, depending on what your communication team feels. And we've left plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the session. Just would be remiss if I didn't just give a little plug about Queens College. We are one of the 4 selective four-year colleges of the City University of New York. We're located in Flushing. We have about 16,000 undergraduate students and about 4,000 graduate students. We're considered a full liberal arts and sciences college, offering students the opportunity to study from accounting to women's studies and everything in between. And we welcome students from the borough of Queens, and we know that cost is a factor, and we're fortunate to be part of the public City University of New York system that maintains our tuition costs relatively low, so that again, money and tuition costs is not the reason why students cannot access college. We're delighted to welcome you to Queens College anytime you want to visit or call us, and we look forward to our continued relationship in the years to come. So I think, Lisa, are you going to, there you go, thank you. If we could put on the PowerPoint presentation.
Before Lisa puts the PowerPoint presentation, I just also want to acknowledge Rizwana Kosar, who's the Assistant Director of Queens College Hub Financial Aid Services, who's also here, as well as Nandi Sukai, who's from the enrollment specialist, Queens College Hub Financial Aid Services. Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Can everybody see?
Yes. If you could go to the next slide. Thank you. Sorry, this is our world in the new virtual environment. So just to briefly describe what we've already done the introduction, so we are past point number one. We're going to talk about what is financial aid. We're going to share with you types of financial aid. Oops, Lisa, if you could go back, I'm sorry. The applications for financial aid, which starts with the free application for federal student aid. We'll talk about scholarship resources, and then we will conclude and open it up for FAQ. So what is financial aid? Basically, financial aid is money that is provided to the student to access college or post-secondary education. And we categorize financial aid in two. One is need-based, which is money that is based on the student and his or her family needs. And that includes grants, which we call free money, scholarships, again, free money, and student loans, which again is money that the student receives to pay for expenses, but has to be paid at the conclusion of their studies. The second category is what we would call merit-based. And that basically is money that the student receives based on academic achievement or athletic or other special interest. The kind of the way in which financial aid and need is determined is based on this formula. And I'm going to kind of go through this pretty fast on this, only because it gets a little bit confusing, but I want you to understand that the cost, the financial need of a student and family is dependent on also the institution that they're going to. So every institution has a different amount of money that they will put forward. But for the federal government perspective, the first thing that they're looking at is the cost of attendance, which is direct and indirect costs, and I'll go through some of that. EFC, which is an acronym that you're going to hear a lot in the financial aid world. It means expected family contribution. And then those two factors then determine financial need. So the cost of attendance, we categorize that in two areas: direct cost, which are such as tuition, fees, room, board, books, and supplies. Those are, in a way, kind of fixed costs per year. And then we have what we call indirect costs, where we include transportation. We assume that there are going to be personal expenses and other type of expenses that a student will incur during their academic year. And the combination of those two is what we then define as a cost of attendance. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the cost of attendance is going to vary by institution based on their tuition and fees and their room and board. The expected family contribution is a formula that is calculated by the federal government. And that is based on the free application for financial student assistance, which we'll talk a little bit about later. So this is something where the federal government looks at the information that the student and his or her parents will put in on the application for financial aid and come up with a number that kind of gives the college and the student an idea of what the family can pay toward their education. Next slide, Lisa. Thank you. And again, I wanted to put this slide again just so that you could see it again, visualize it, that the three main components are the cost of attendance, the expected family contribution based on the information that is provided on the FAFSA, and then that equals out to the college what the financial need for that family is. So briefly on who is eligible for financial aid. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of financial aid, and we're fortunate that in the state of New York, there is financial aid for a much broader set of high school students going on to college. But a student must graduate from high school or its equivalent, must be accepted with the intent to enroll at a college or university or post-secondary institution. For federal financial aid, must be a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen, and must be registered for selective service. So those are kind of the main categories of eligibility requirements for the federal government. And in the state of New York, in order to access financial aid from the state of New York, they must be a resident of the state of New York as well. Thanks, Lisa. And just one other, we know that we have a variety of types of families. So wanted to just share a little bit about what is it, dependency status, which means students who are dependent on their family, on their parents for financial aid purposes. Basically is any student who is under the age of 24. And also if they're not with their legal parents, if they're an orphan or ward of the state. And we do know that we have many families where a child lives with a relative or with grandparents, and they're only considered their legal guardian if there's court documentation that they could attest to. So that's something that is important. Otherwise, the federal government expects the student to provide financial information from their biological parents. Thanks, Lisa. And this probably is one of the most important slides, is what types of grants are available. And as we mentioned earlier, grants are what we call free money. It's money that the student receives, but he or she does not have to pay back. On the federal level, through the FAFSA, we have the Pell Grant, which this year will have a maximum of about $6,500 per year, assuming that the student receives the maximum award. We have the Federal Supplemental Educational Grant, which is an additional $100 to $4,000 that a student receives. And we also then have the Federal Work Study. The Work Study program is money that the student is guaranteed to earn, but that is not money that the student gets at the beginning of the term. It's something that, based on the hours worked on campus, they will be paid. So that most students use that for their personal expenses. At the New York State level, we have three programs that are, or two programs that are grants. We have the New York State Tuition Assistance Program. And again, by the way, New York State happens to be one of the most generous states in the union as it relates to state financial aid. So the maximum grant is $5,165, and I believe that that is projected to be increased this year by the state. And it also, there is an opportunity for students who are part-time to receive New York State grant, as is the case, for example, with the federal grant. But if you could see the combination of these two awards, if a student receives the maximum, they could pretty much are getting about almost $12,000 in free money to attend college per year. Next slide, Lisa. Types of loans. I know that most families automatically say, oh my God, we don't want loans, but there is an option for students to receive loans to support their college experience. As an undergraduate, I took out student loans and I was able to pay them. Back then we used paper checks. So I remember at the end of 10 years, writing that last check to pay my student loan. But we wanted to offer the information to parents because there are many families who are not eligible for financial aid due to the income of the family, but do need a little bit of help in kind of spreading out the cost of their child's education. So student loans are a viable option for students. At Queens College, one of the things that we guarantee is that students will graduate in 4 years. So we do know that the amount of loans that a student will take is defined for 4 years. So it's an option that we want students to understand and families to understand and not be afraid of exploring college loans, student loans, because it's better to go to college and finish college and have debt than not to take out a loan and not be able to finish your studies. Next slide, Lisa. And again, this just gives you that there are different loans. So in essence, every student is eligible for a student loan based on the family income and the student's financial situation and EFC that we talked about earlier. There's a distinction between a direct student loan, subsidized student loan, and an unsubsidized student loan. And the difference is that for the subsidized student loan, which is for students that have high need, the federal government pays the interest while the student is in school. For the unsubsidized loan, the interest is accrued on the student account, and the student and the family is responsible for the student loan at the end. So that really is the only difference between those two. So the first step in the application for financial aid is the free application for federal student aid. I want to emphasize the word free, which means that in order to apply for financial aid, you do not have to pay anyone to do this. There are many, many people out there who are making a living out of enticing families to pay them to apply for financial aid or scholarships. Please do not. The federal government has made it very clear that if a student is applying for financial aid, it's because they have need. Therefore, there is no fee to apply for financial aid. As with everything in life, there's one exception, and that exception is there are many private institutions that use the College Board profile, which is an application that they use in addition to the free application for federal student aid to evaluate student needs. So that will be the only application that will have a cost. But the College Board does have waivers for the CSS profile. And what is really critical for you and your parents, or I should say parents and your child, is speak with your college advisor if you have any questions. But again, emphasis on the word free. Do not get convinced to pay somebody to fill out the applications or to that in a guarantee of getting a scholarship. There is a lot of money, and everything that we are talking about tonight is free. So a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight on the free application for federal student aid. It is available in both English and Spanish, and the federal website has also other languages that provide information. Students can apply for financial aid during the fall of their senior year of high school, and they're expected to apply every year, renew their financial aid every year while in college. And there are a lot of resources available to students and their families to complete the financial aid. The one thing for parents is to make sure that you have that you're filing your taxes if you're required to file taxes, and that you have the ability to document the information that's in the taxes. So that will come a little bit later. Thanks, Lisa. This is just kind of the link, and as I mentioned earlier, we will be sharing this presentation with the Borough President's office so that they could make it accessible to you, or you could contact me and we will send it out to you. But this just to give you the URL please make sure that it is fafsa.edu.gov. If you type in fafsa.com, you will get an organization that charges for you to fill out the application. They are a legitimate organization, but as I said before, there really is no need for you to pay anybody to complete the FAFSA. This application has two parts. There's one part that is the first step needs to be done by the student. So the student has to go in, create an account, and then the parent will go in and create an account. Some of you may not want to share with your child your financial situation, so it is important that you submit that information. Also, just a note that the federal financial aid application review process is strictly based on the student's citizenship status. So we do know that we have many households where there is a parent or parents are not documented, but the student is an American citizen. That student is eligible for financial aid because the financial aid is strictly based on the student status, not on the parent status. Thanks, Lisa. And the other thing, and going back to completing your taxes and having them be current, is that there is an opportunity for the student and for the parent to link your IRS transcript documentation onto the FAFSA. And I strongly encourage that if you have the opportunity to do that, that you do so, because that minimizes the amount of documentation that you may be asked to submit later. And that tool is called the IRS Retrieval. And again, all of this information is available on the FAFSA as you complete the information. And the federal website has very, very specific and detailed information on this. Now shifting to New York State. New York State has a series of financial aid programs for New York State residents. And the main organization that manages all of that is called the Higher Education Services Corporation, which you see the URL here. It's HESC, HESC.newyork.gov. And their website also is very, very informative and has a lot of comprehensive information in multiple languages. So I would encourage you to use that as a resource. So I will provide just kind of an overview of what's available. In New York, as I talked about before, we have the New York State Tuition Assistance Program. And that program is available to any student who is a resident of New York and is eligible. And this is money that they could only use in the state of New York. One thing I forgot to mention is that the federal funds, whether it be Pell, whether it be SEOG, work study, or student loans, can be used for any college or university in the United States. So that is money that is federal and crosses state lines. The New York State aid programs are restricted to only New York State residents, but can only be used at institutions in New York State. And we talked about the funding that's available. New York State Tuition Assistance Program for students that are eligible for the maximum. Although you saw the dollar figure of $5,165, if the student is eligible for the maximum TAP award, it will cover the full cost of tuition at both CUNY and at SUNY. So just keep that in mind, that although the dollar figure that we presented is not equal to the cost of tuition at CUNY and SUNY, we have made a commitment to the state, as has SUNY, that we will make up the difference at the college. So if the student is eligible for full TAP, it means that their full tuition costs are covered if they attend a CUNY or a SUNY school. That $5,165 figure will be then applied if a student goes to a private school, because that will be the cap on the dollar figure. There are two ways to apply for TAP. One is through the HESC application, but also as you're filling out the FAFSA, at the end of the FAFSA, you will be asked if you want to apply for one of the state programs, and you could click through that link and apply for New York State tuition assistance. The DREAM Act. New York State is one of the few states in the union that provides financial assistance to undocumented students. And it's actually called the Jose Peralta DREAM Act. And Jose Peralta was a member of New York State government who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, a proud alum of Queens College. And in his honor, because he fought so diligently for New Yorkers, the government passed this a couple of years ago. So now any student who graduates from high school in New York State and has been at that high school for at least 2 years and attends a CUNY or SUNY school can get a free, if they, based on need, can get New York State financial aid. So the DREAM Act is the New York State TAP version for undocumented students. And again, going back to my opening comment, that there is a lot of funding available to all New Yorkers who want to go to college. And this, again, is an example of that. Remember that I said at the beginning that undocumented students could not apply via FAFSA. So for the DREAM Act, it is not a requirement that students complete the FAFSA. As I mentioned, the only requirement is that they're eligible for the in-state tuition benefit at either CUNY or SUNY, and that is determined by graduating from high school in New York State, having been in that high school for at least 2 years, and attending a CUNY or SUNY institution within 5 years of graduation. Thanks, Lisa. The other New York State program that was rolled out in 2017 was the New York State Excelsior Scholarship. And this scholarship provides up to full tuition to any student in New York State, again, meeting that New York State in-state residency requirement. And it covers full tuition for up to 4 years. And so it is, again, possible for a family or student to attend a CUNY or SUNY school through the Excelsior Scholarship and not have to pay a single dollar of tuition. The student and the family are still responsible for fees and housing and all the other indirect costs, but the tuition for 4 years is covered. Unlike the New York State Tuition Assistance Program or the DREAM Act programs that we call entitlements, and what that means is if you apply and you're financially eligible, you will receive that. The New York State Excelsior, it's a scholarship. So students need to apply. There are certain parameters. There's income, and I believe that this year we are at $125,000 or less for eligibility. And then students need to maintain a particular course taking pattern during their 4 years. But again, there is the ability for students to go to school for free. And we wanted to just share that with you tonight. The only aspect of the Excelsior Scholarship that is different from TAP is that it is a different application. So unfortunately, it's a third application that a student would need to fill out. And the timeline of student notification is different than the New York State Tuition Assistance Program or the New York State DREAM Act program. Thanks, Lisa. So here, it just gives you some additional resources that are available for more scholarships. As I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of funding out there, and there are many, many opportunities for students to apply for scholarships. This is just a short list of all the resources. I would strongly encourage you to speak with your college advisor. We have an incredible array of professionals within the New York City Department of Education whose sole responsibility and goal is to get information to you and your children about the college experience, and take advantage of that. And I know that we have Mr. Wong, who is here from Townsend Harris, my neighbor that we've not seen in quite a while. but take advantage of those resources because there is a lot of help. If your child attends a private school, whether it be St. Francis Prep or the many other Mary Louise Academy, Archbishop Beloy, or any of the other private schools or Catholic schools in the borough, they too have an incredible set of professionals that work with you to get through that college search and provide as much information as possible. And obviously we at Queens College and my colleagues in the admissions offices of CUNY colleges are available to answer any of your questions as well. And I think this is our, oh, sorry. So let me just do a quick summary. Again, the timeline, and I believe that Mr. Wong is going to talk about the timeline, but I will just give you a quick, your junior year of high school is when you really start your college search. And with you then start applying to colleges during the first part of your senior year in high school. And you start applying for financial aid also starting October 1st of the senior year. We recommend that students apply for college and for financial aid about the same time because you could do both things at the same time. Colleges will generally not provide a financial aid award until after the student has been accepted. But you don't have to wait until you're accepted to apply for financial aid. So just keep that in mind. Students have the ability to apply to multiple schools in financial aid. And because everything is done online, if colleges change or student selection changes, they could go into either their FAFSA or their New York State financial aid forms and update those forms as necessary. And I know that this is a lot of information, but there are a lot of resources out there. There are many of us who are happy to answer questions for you. So please do not be afraid of asking questions. Thanks, Lisa.
All right, so we're gonna move.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Monica, if you wanted to just let us know how to manage the.
Yes, so we're gonna
chat.
move now with Mr. Jeremy Wang from Townsend Harris. He is the school counselor there. Jeremy?
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez, and also Queens Borough President's Office for having me to share my experiences with the Queens parents as well as students. And Mr. Alvarez, we are not just neighbors, I think we are relatives because my school's name is Townsend Harris High School at Queens College. We are located at the southwest corner of the campus. We're on your campus. And I
Indeed.
park there. I park on the campus every day when I go in there. So in any case, thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. I wish I listened to you when I was actually attending colleges. So in any case, this is the time, just like when Mr. Alvarez said, junior year, the springtime of a junior year is the time when you start your college search, as well as you do your serious preparation. This is the time when you are working hard, focused on your work, on your studies, as well as doing step-by-step research. Because we eventually would like our students to go to a fit college. So the fit college is actually the philosophy of practically all high schools, as well as colleges who are looking for a fit student as well. I'm actually starting meeting with my juniors right now individually. We met with them in groups, and now I have moved to meeting with my students individually. So I'm going to share some of the things that I talk with my students at the individual meetings, so that you have an idea how you're going to prepare for college preparation as well as college application in the fall. This is the time when you are supposed to be asking some teachers for recommendation. Actually, by the way, I'd like to add one explanation. When I say college, I don't always mean public schools, and it would include public school and private schools. And some of them are competitive private schools. So the major categories would include private schools and public universities. And our CUNYs and SUNYs really premium colleges, we would routinely recommend our students to apply to them. And at the same time, when we talk about colleges, we talk about recommendations, we talk about college application, we talk about college essay, and also transcripts. And since this is a financial aid focused workshop, so I'm going to talk more about financial aid rather than the college application and preparation itself. This is the time our students really should look for colleges, research for universities, and looking for a fit college or list of fit colleges to apply to. There are a huge amount of resources, and one of them is College Board, bigfuture.com. We have Common App. You're going to use Common App to apply to a lot of colleges, except for CUNY schools. CUNYs don't use Common App, especially if you are looking for the Honors College, the Macaulay Honors College. And also there is a great medical school that is Sophie Davis. They do not use Common App. They use CUNY First application system. And so we also have Naviance. I believe a lot of high schools use Naviance as their college application material management system, all the supporting materials, such as your transcript, your school profile, your teacher recommendation, your counselor recommendation. They're all stored in Naviance. So this is what we use at Townsend Harris High School. I believe all the specialized high schools use Naviance as well. And I'm not sure about the other schools, our neighbor schools such as Forest Hills, Francis Lewis High School, Cardozo High School, and those are our neighbor schools. And I believe they do use Naviance, but you can talk with your guidance counselor and find out. If you have Naviance, Naviance is a huge resource for that. And you're going to also, there are some publications such as FISC Guide to Colleges, and also published by Princeton Review. There's a 380 some best colleges, and both books are very detailed oriented, and they are basically about 2 inches thick, and they devote something like 2 pages for each college. And that's something that our students really should be doing as of now, between now and the end of June. Our students would have actually started asking for teacher recommendations, because if you do apply to some of the competitive private schools, you will need to have some teacher recommendations. And especially if you apply to honors programs such as CUNY Macaulay Honors Program, they do require 2 teacher recommendations. Therefore, it would be a good idea for you to start asking your teachers right now in the springtime. In the summertime, you really should actually be working on your college essay. And that's the time you really have time to sit and focus on your own thoughts, on your own growth. And this is the time you have very few distractions, such as, I need to get this work done. That project is due next week, or I have SAT, or I have AP to take. You don't have those kind of distractions. You focus on yourself. You're gonna tell the colleges who you are, how you became the person as you are, who influenced you, and the college essay prompts are public information. You can actually Google it. What is the college essay prompts for the class of 2022, or the application cycle of 2021 to 2022? You're going to find the prompts very easily through Google. And that's the summertime. At the same time, some of the competitive private universities, including all Ivy League schools, they have their own supplemental questions. And supplemental questions, in some cases, are more involved than the Common App application itself. They can ask you, why us? They're going to ask you to describe an ideal college. They're going to ask you to tell them a community or place that you call home. And they will ask you to write a note to your future roommate, and you can say, what is this? Why do I have to do that? Those are the supplemental questions, real supplemental questions. The note to future roommate is a real question from Stanford. And describe a place and community, that is actually a real question by Brown University. And describe an ideal college, that's a real question by Columbia. And NYU is going to ask you a straightforward question. Why NYU? Why did you want to apply to NYU? That's a straightforward question. You're gonna tell them why. Okay. So that gives you an example. How do you answer those questions? I said that before. You do research between now and the end of June. You're going to read between lines. You understand the college environment, the student body, the strong programs, even professors who have done some certain researches, because you're going in as a student. You apply to Columbia because you know the college instead of know the name of the college. It's a great school. It's an Ivy League school. Other than that, what else can you tell them? The admission people know their college very well. So if they read something that's completely different from what they are offering, the application is not going to be a successful application. So we're talking about the preparation and application itself. And moving to September, this is the time when you actually are starting to compile a list of colleges that you're going to apply to. And from my school's point of view, you're going to tell us a list of colleges in Naviance. This is our management system. We need to know what colleges you're applying to. Common App is a college application system, just like the CUNY First application. That's an application system. Our Naviance is our management system. All the documents are stored in there. We talked about CUNY application. We talked about Common App application. A lot of schools do not use Common App. For instance, Georgetown University is a very competitive private school located in Washington, D.C. That school does not use Common App. And we all know MIT, such a high place for technology people. They do not use Common App. If you're interested in applying to University of California system, any school, Berkeley, Los Angeles, Davis, Irvine, they do not use Common App. So you need to work directly with their application system. And for financial aid application, you can start as early as October 1st. And when do you have to complete them? That is actually decided by the colleges. Each college has their own different deadline. And Queens College has a deadline. NYU has a deadline. Columbia has a different deadline. And also it depends on how you apply and what timeline you apply to colleges. In private schools, mostly private schools, there are 3 different types of early application. One is called early decision, one is called early action, and the third one is called restrictive early action. Early decision is a binding decision. Why is it binding? Because before you make your application an early decision application, you need to sign an agreement. An agreement basically says if you are accepted, you are committed to attend. So that's the agreement. The 3 parties who need to sign it would include the student, him or herself, the parent, one of the custodial parents, and also the high school counselor, who actually is responsible for submitting your transcript, that person. These 3 parties will sign the agreement. Therefore, it becomes a binding decision. If you're accepted, you're supposed to go. Early action is not a binding. There's no such agreement to sign. And restrictive early action is there's no agreement to sign, but the restriction is restricting you from applying to any private schools via early action or early decision. So who used the restrictive early action? Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Stanford. These are the schools that I know. And give you an example, if you apply to Yale through restrictive early action, you cannot apply to Columbia through early decision. You cannot apply to NYU through early decision because these are private schools. And also at the same time, if you cannot apply to U Chicago through early action either because U Chicago is a private school. However, you can apply to Binghamton through early action because Binghamton is your public university. So that's the restriction. What's the similarities? What's the differences? The similarities are the deadlines are more or less the same. They are usually hovered around between November 1st and November 15th. So that's an early application. And the differences are early decision is binding, early action is not a binding. Restrictive early action is a restriction. There's a restriction there. So that's the difference. And the majority, well, actually, the timeline looks like this. When you apply to a school through early application, you will get your result before Christmas. Usually it's around mid-December. And at that time, you may receive one of the three possible results. One, acceptance. Two, rejection. Three, deferral. For acceptance, that's a cause for celebration. You can actually go out for dinner and celebrate. The rejection is the end of the road for you. You are no longer allowed to apply to this particular school for the rest of the school year. You cannot apply through regular either because you have been denied. The third one is deferral. If you're deferred, your application is going to be considered the second time, and it's going to be reevaluated by the college admission people. You do not have to reapply. You can add some new materials to your application, but you don't need to reapply. The majority of the schools would actually receive the majority of the applications through regular decision. The regular decision deadlines are usually somewhere between the beginning of January and mid-January or early February. These group of students actually can, if they are accepted, they can say no to the college. If you apply, let's say you apply to NYU through regular decision, you are accepted and you decided not to attend. You don't have to say anything, you just don't respond to them. That's the end of it. If you're nice enough, you can tell them, sorry, I'm going to a different school, I'm not coming to you. You don't have to tell them exactly where you're going, but they probably want to know that because they want to know who's the overlapping school with NYU. So that is the regular decision. And there's some schools who use rolling admissions. Rolling admissions basically is a first come, first serve kind of application. The earlier that you apply, the earlier that you need the result. Stony Brook used to have that rolling admission practice, but they now seem to have a deadline. And also CUNY used to have that rolling admission, but CUNY colleges now are setting their deadlines as early springtime, sometime in March and sometimes in late February or something like that. So they are moving towards more and more towards managing their applications as tightly as neatly as possible. So those are the deadlines that are there for. I just want to add one or two sentences about the financial aid application. Mr. Alvarez talked about a lot more about FAFSA, so I'm not going to say anything about FAFSA. There is another application when you apply for financial aid, especially to private institutions, competitive private institutions such as NYU, Columbia, not something like Adelphi or St. John's. They are not generally considered as competitive. And in this case, the private institutions are digging into their own endowment to offer scholarship money to help students. So they have their own evaluation system that is called CSS profile. That is on College Board. The College Board offers this service for the colleges to evaluate your financial needs. And it also goes with what Mr. Alvarez said. There is a need-based scholarship and there's a merit-based scholarship. And by and large, the private institutions are talking about need-based scholarships. And so that is the CSS profile. And also, Mr. Alvarez talked about fee waivers. Yes, there are fee waivers to support students to take SAT, to take AP, and also complete the CSS profile, as well as college application. So the fee waivers, how are the fee waivers distributed? Where is the source? How do we know certain students are eligible for fee waiver? That came from the family income survey that you should have completed in October of 2020, if you are a senior right now. If you are a junior, it's the same thing. If you complete the family income survey, you would get a so-called lunch status. Some students need to pay full price for lunch, then you are not eligible for such a fee waiver. Some students pay half price lunch, then you are eligible. If you are a free lunch student, you are eligible. And there is a fourth category, that is, you did not complete the form. If you did not complete the form, automatically you're not eligible. So that is a very important family income survey that is important to you as an individual student, as well as the school. If the school has enough free lunch or reduced price lunch students, the school will receive extra funding from the federal government. So it is important to both the school and the individual students. And when you are completing both your FAFSA and your CSS profile, one very important document that you're going to need is your tax return, the 2019 tax return, 1040. Therefore, it is also very important for all families to file income taxes, whether you receive partially check, partially cash, or completely check. You need to complete that. That's also citizen responsibility. And therefore, when we talk about FAFSA application, it is extremely important when you are using that document, because you will need the document to complete your FAFSA. And talking about FAFSA, is it complicated? It's not complicated. Some of my students asked me if I could help them. I said, you should be able to do it. I would tell you what you need. You need your parents' 1040 form right in front of you, and you will need your driver license if you do have one, okay? Because that's one of the questions in FAFSA. And FAFSA is going to tell you exactly which line, which item from your 1040 form to fill in that figure. And for the bank statement figure, you can just have a rough idea. If you only have savings account or checking account, that amount changes from time to time. And therefore, you don't have to give them an absolute figure. You can give them a ballpark figure. So one of my students actually said that she completed the FAFSA in 26 minutes. Just as easy as that. If you can go to college, you can complete that FAFSA form. So just to reinforce what Mr. Alvarez said, you should not pay anybody to help you complete that FAFSA, because it's not that complicated, okay? And you're ready to go to college, you're educated, you know how to complete the form. So that is the FAFSA, and CSS is actually on College Board. And again, for both FAFSA and CSS, that will be required by the competitive private institutions. You can actually find out which college use CSS by just going in to College Board. You can search for CSS profile, or you can just Google it. It's public information. As far as I know, very few public universities would use CSS, such as UC Berkeley, University of Michigan, Georgia Tech. These are competitive public universities. They use CSS. Why do they use CSS? Because they have their own endowments. They're going to distribute the money to students based on their own criteria. So that is basically the financial aid application. in a very quick description. And by this time next year, juniors would have completed their college application process. And May 3rd this year is the decision date for all Ivy League schools. So the students should know if they are attending certain colleges or not. Most of the students actually have made the decision, but some students are waiting to the last minute because they're negotiating with the financial aid office, asking for money. And I'm sure Ms. Moy Medina would tell you, they are expected to receive phone calls from students. They are negotiating more money for themselves. And it's actually perfectly fine. They are expecting you to call them and ask for more money. That's what my students do too. And they don't give me enough money. However, when you compare schools, this college give me this amount of money, and you did give me that amount of money. You need to compare oranges with oranges. You cannot compare oranges with apples. Meaning that if those top competitive schools will only give you need-based money, versus schools such as St. John's and Adelphi, they routinely give scholarship money to lure some good students onto their campus. So you cannot compare Adelphi with Stanford. You say, oh, Adelphi is a private school. They gave me this amount of money. Can you match that? They would not do that because that is against their policy. Each school has its own financial aid policy and criteria. Therefore, when you're asking for more money, the basic rule of thumb is for you to tell them what financial situation has changed in your family. And sometimes they would ask you for documents to back yourself up, so that the financial aid office personnel are all experts in this. At least they're experts in their own college's policies and their own criteria. So they will tell you what they can do, what they cannot do, and they will tell you the truth. So by this time, by May 2022, the current juniors would complete their college application process, more or less, and then you're going to focus on taking your AP and ACIT. Public universities would routinely offer you credits if you have received good scores on AP exam. Many of the private competitive universities don't offer you credits. They will let you take a higher level class instead of starting at the beginning. They'll let you take the second level of class, but they would not give you credits for the AP exam that you have taken. So basically, I think that's the part that I prepared. I'm sorry I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I can send something to Ms. Gutierrez later if needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. That was so informational. That was fantastic. And I can't thank Queens College enough. The borough president did have a chance to visit with President Wu a few days ago. It was such an amazing visit. The borough president's sister graduated from Queens College. My sister graduated from Queens College in 2007. So just thank you so much for your partnership. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce our Director of Education, the illustrious Monica Gutierrez. Thank you for taking it away.
Thank you, Deputy Borough President. I'm also a graduate of Queens College as well, so that's my alma mater. I love that school. I just wanted to talk briefly also about the college savings program, because I know there are many parents here who may have kids who are not in high school yet, who have kids in elementary school or maybe younger. You can start to save with the college savings plan, and you can go to nysaves.org, nysaves.org, to apply for the college savings plan or the 529 plan. Also, one thing that I want to talk about briefly is that the there's a loan forgiveness program, believe it or not, on the state level with the higher education. So that's really great. So if you go to HESC, and I just wanted, let me see if okay, yeah. So there's several. There's the loan forgiveness for district attorneys and indigent legal services attorneys, loan forgiveness for licensed social workers, New York State Young Farmers Loan Forgiveness Incentive Program, New York State Get on Your Feet Loan Forgiveness Program, Nursing Faculty Loan Forgiveness Incentive Program, New York State Child Welfare Worker Loan Forgiveness Program, New York State Teacher Loan Forgiveness Program. I know there's a loan forgiveness program if you work for a not-for-profit organization as well. So you can look that up actually under HESC, hesc.ny.gov/loan-forgiveness. That comes in handy. Who doesn't want to have a loan forgiven, you know? I also want to talk a little bit about, there is the biggest not-for-profit organization actually in the country happens to be here in New York, where they have all kinds of grants and scholarships, either for college or if you want to start a business, or if you're in the arts. And they used to be called the Foundation Center. Now it's called Candid, and they still have their original website up, foundationcenter.org. So even if you were to go there, you will find information on there, but you can go to candid.org, CANDID.org. We will put that in the chat, or I can also email it to everyone who RSVP'd. But that's something really great to look into. Now, I also want to briefly talk about, I know there's some questions here about the EHOP program, the College Discovery Program, and the SEEK program. I know that the EHOP and the SEEK program are for the 4-year colleges. The EHOP is for the New York State colleges, like Binghamton, and the SEEK is more for the CUNY, for the local city colleges, where at least for the, it looks like you would need like a 70 average. At the highest is 84.5, and it's for economically disadvantaged students who may need, who could potentially do well in college, but may need that enhanced academic support and financial assistance. So basically—
Monica, I'm sorry. Can I just give a little bit more information on that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Sure. So there are basically 3 opportunity programs in the state of New York. There's one for the private schools. So for example, Columbia University has an EOP program. And it's based on, each school has a different set of requirements, of academic requirements for their opportunity program. The EOP program is for the private colleges in New York. The HEOP program is for the state university system. And the SEEK and CD programs are for CUNY. The SEEK program for the 4-year colleges, and the College Discovery CD program for our community colleges. And it is, as Ms. Gutierrez mentioned, a program for students who are deemed academically and financially in need. And the academic need is defined as a student who does not generally meet the general admissions guidelines for that institution. So an opportunity program student at Columbia is going to be very different than a opportunity program student at, let's say, Queensborough Community College. But it is something that, again, the student should talk to their counselor or reach out to the individual school, because it does provide additional support for students in the way of counseling, tutoring, and other aspects to get them to where they need to go. There are extremely successful programs, and we at Queens College are very proud of the SEEK program. We have, by the time students graduate at the end of their 4 years, they're on par with all of our other students, whether they came in through general admissions or they came in through Macaulay Honors College. As I mentioned earlier, the DREAM Act in New York is named after Jose Peralta, who is a proud alum of the SEEK program at Queens College. And our commencement speaker today is Adriano Escolat, who is the first undocumented person and of Dominican descent to be elected to the U.S. Congress. And he is a proud alum of Queens College in the SEEK program. So it's really not where you start, but where you finish. And in New York State, we're very fortunate that we have a variety of opportunities for students based on their interest, based on their financial need, and based on their academic achievements at the time of high school. What a student has done in high school doesn't necessarily define what they could do in college and beyond.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Thank you very much. Let me see. All right, so I just want to start with the questions here. Let's see. I know some of the questions have been answered already, but I am going to ask it anyway. And the person on the panel who answered it on here, because not everybody can see the Q&A. Some people are watching through YouTube or are watching through our website. So let's see here. When will the Excelsior Scholarship application open? So Lisa, if you can answer.
Yes, so right now, the scholarship is not available for the upcoming 2021-2022 academic year. The deadline that you see on the website now for February 11th was for the spring 21 semester, which is what we're currently in right now. If you are interested, you can go to the website to hesc.ny.gov, and you can actually put in your email address, and they will notify you when the application becomes available.
Okay, let's say this one's from Lizette Velez. Great info. Will this be followed up with the contact info and dates via emails? The answer is from Mr. Richard Alvarez. We will share the presentation with the Borough President's office. So anybody who RSVP'd, we will share the presentation that Mr. Alvarez did this evening. Okay, then there's a question by May Lam. What are the best ways to get school loans and scholarships? Thank you. Lisa, if you can answer.
Yes, so it depends on what school you're planning on attending and how to apply for loans. At QC, you would apply for the direct loans directly through the CUNY First system, which is the student-based system that students will have access to when they're accepted into Queens College. They do their registering, they pay their bills, they apply for direct loans on that website or on that system. And for scholarships, I also posted a link, but if you go to Queens or qc.cuny.edu, you can type in honors and scholarships, and the first link that you see there will have a whole list of scholarships that's available at the moment. But every year, scholarships are always updated. They always tell you what's available. During that time, there are different deadlines for each particular scholarship. So just make sure that you're aware of what type of scholarship you're interested in and what deadlines they have. And depending on the school that you go to, you can just search for scholarships and see what they have available at that school, whether it's merit-based, academic, and or sports related.
And if I could just add, thank you, Lisa, that the first step for any type of aid, whether it be need-based or merit, is going to be the FAFSA. Because most schools, including Queens, we will not look at a student's scholarship application if we don't have a FAFSA on file, because we want to determine, particularly if they're need-based scholarships. So keep that in mind, that applies to not just Queens, but any other school. And for a student loan, you cannot access a student loan if you don't have a FAFSA on file, a completed FAFSA, because that is coming through the federal government. And as Mr. Wong mentioned, there are private schools that are looking at the College Board CSS profile. So those two forms are the primary forms that most institutions will use to determine eligibility. What Lisa described is what happens after the FAFSA, that then each institution will give you that information. Also to note that if a student is not eligible to complete the FAFSA, then the New York State TAP, whether it be the New York State TAP or the DREAM New York State Tuition Assistance Program, we will use that information. So just keep in mind that those are the first three steps, the FAFSA and or the CS College Board profile and the New York State financial aid assistance. That kind of starts the process on all the other information.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. I also want to mention that parents can save also a lot of money for those parents who have younger kids. Once your child goes to high school, many of the high schools have different college programs where they can get college credit. For example, there's a high school in Queens called Bard where students actually graduate with an associate's degree. So you just save 2 years of college right there. So that's really terrific. So that's definitely something to look forward to. And parents can save a lot of money that way. I have a question for Mr. Alvarez or for Lisa. I understand that in order to get financial aid, you need to have 12 credits. Is that correct? Or 4 classes? You have to be a full-time student, in other words.
So yes, there is a requirement. As we mentioned at the beginning, or it was on the slide, financial aid is limited in terms of the number of semesters that you could get financial aid. So the expectation is that a student will attend college, and at a 2-year school, it's an associate's degree program, which with the expectation that a student will complete their studies in 2 years. And at a baccalaureate level institution, the expectation is that students will complete their bachelor's degree in 4 years. So the New York State Excelsior Scholarship, the New York State Tuition Assistant Program, the DREAM Act program is set for 8 semesters, which means 4 years. So we at Queens College define full-time status to be 15 credits, 5 courses per semester, because our bachelor's degree, and I believe this is the same at SUNY, there are 120 credits. So our expectation is that students will take a minimum of 5 courses per semester in order to graduate on time and in order to be able to use their financial aid during their undergraduate experience. There are some exceptions. So with TAP, for example, if a student is in an opportunity program, they get a 5th year because many of those students need some support so they could extend it to 5 years. And on the New York State Excelsior, there are some exceptions to that, particularly if they're students with disabilities who are unable to take a full load. So yes, the definition of a student full-time is 12 credits, but if they're relying on financial aid to pay for their tuition or part of it, and they only take 12 credits per semester, they're going to run out of financial aid by credit number 96. So we really strongly encourage students to take 5 courses per semester, and they can. And we at Queens College, for example, have a 4-year graduation guarantee. It's a contract that we make with every freshman that comes in, that if they stay taking 5 courses per semester or 30 credits per year, they declare major by the beginning of their sophomore year, and they register on time, that we will make sure that every course they need to graduate in 4 years is available to them. And this spring will be our first cohort. We inaugurated this program in 2017, and we have increased our 4-year graduation rate by, we're projected by 15 percentage points between the cohort that came in fall 16 and the cohort that came in fall 17. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but I want to make sure that students and family understand that it's a 4-year program. And yes, there are reasons why students cannot finish in 4 years, but they then should speak with an advisor at their school and have a plan, because the financial aid programs do have an expiration date.
Monica, I just want to add a few things. When you're looking at your financial aid letter, I know we broke everything out, but I just want to make sure that families know that traditionally, especially for private schools, that after they take the cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution, and they come out with a level, that the financial aid will be broken up usually between possibly honor scholarships, college grants, federal work study, it could be an institutional loan in addition to a federal subsidized loan or a federal unsubsidized loan. So it's usually not an all or nothing. It's usually not all grant and all or all loan, that there's a combination of items there. And when you're looking at your financial aid letters, for most schools, they will reevaluate your aid every year. Meaning, this year, my family has 3 kids in college, and I'm supposed to give $10,000 for each child. That's what I can give. Next year, I only have 1 child in college, right? So then my expected family contribution is going to differ from my first year. So you may not get as much aid in your second year or your third year. Conversely, if I have more kids going to college in my family from when I started, I may get more aid each year. So it's super important to fill out that financial aid form every year. Another thing to really look at as a parent when you are making your decision for college is there are certain schools who don't have a lot of institutional grant aid to give out, right? So they may offer you a lot of loans. So you have to consider that. There are schools like NYU that determine your level of grant aid at freshman year, unless you have an extreme financial situation that would change your award. So what you get freshman year is what you should expect the following years if your financial situation remains the same. That's problematic sometimes for families, right? Because they look at things from the freshman year and say, okay, well, we can make it freshman year. But you really have to look out the four years that you're going to school. So it's really important, if you have any questions, to discuss them with, I think Richard said, all of the schools that your kids get into, because they're there to answer questions. Another really important question, actually, I don't know who can answer this, but I'm going to throw it out there for undocumented students who want to go to school in New York and they are not part of the DREAM Act. What is their situation when applying to a city university or SUNY?
Okay, so thank you for bringing that up, because I realized that I guess there's a little bit of confusion. The New York State program is called DREAM Act, but it is not for only DACA students. So in New York State, again, we're very fortunate that the state, our state government has made a commitment to New Yorkers to help with aid. So both New York State TAP and the New York State Excelsior Scholarship are available to any student, regardless of immigration status, who graduates from high school in New York State and has attended that high school for 2 years and enrolls in a CUNY or SUNY school within 5 years of graduation. So that is the only requirement that they need to meet in order to access TAP and or the Excelsior program. And again, that could cover if they're eligible for the maximum, or they get the Excelsior scholarship, or they get both. They will cover the full cost of tuition at any CUNY or SUNY school. So we call it the DREAM Act, or the state called it that because they wanted to kind of, that is a brand that people understand what it means, but it is not restricted to only those students that have DACA status through the federal government.
Right.
And if I could just add 2 comments that I want to make sure that we, and just my personal experience in being in the field for over 35 years, you know, I started when I was 2, is that a college education is an investment in the student and in the family for life. So I know that we talk about, you know, the return on investment and all the other things. It is critical, and it is an option that is available to everybody to go to college. And I think that we have in New York alone an incredible array of institutions. We have private institutions ranging from highly selective Ivy Leagues to general admissions. We have a state university system that has over 64 colleges across the state. And then we have the CUNY system, which has 25 colleges within the city of New York. So accessing college is an option available to everybody, regardless of how much money the family has. But I always considered, I know my parents did not go to college, but since we were born, my brother, my sister, and I, there was no choice. College was the way to go. That it is available, it is a return on investment. And I would like for families to think about not just the undergraduate degree or the first degree, because graduate school and professional school really are a requirement. So you want to look at this in its totality. And quite frankly, the institution that you graduate from will help you get your first job. What you do as a professional, what you do as a member of a team is going to get you your career. So I know that we often focus on brand names and we want to have the, this school or that school. There are over 3,000 colleges and universities in the United States. And not everybody can go to the Ivy League, and not everybody should. If truth be told, they only serve maybe 4% of the college population in the United States. That is only 4%, where over 75% of college students in the United States attend public institutions. So again, there's a plethora of opportunity, and students should aim for the sky. But there are, again, you want to plan it out for, if you want to start at an associate's degree, then go into a bachelor's degree, go into a master's program. That's a strategy. Going directly into a four-year school. Again, there's a lot of information. My colleagues in both the private and public K through 12 system have a lot of support, and many of us are here to support you through this journey.
Thanks. I just also, I'm sorry if I may add that, I just want to add, it's very important for students to do internship programs once they are in college, because they get a lot of experience that way. Not only that, but it has been my experience that many students get actually hired by the companies that they intern with. So it's a great way for students to get experience. Also, very important for students to do a double major or a major and a minor. Sometimes if the student or the, looks into, they have different programs where for the same amount of tuition money, you can get a minor or a double major. And that's terrific, because that's what I did. I did a double major and I've been able to work. It just makes you more marketable. I've been able to work in television news and in government policy. And I think that's very helpful. And so I just want to throw it out there. That's very important. I just have a question for Mr. Alvarez. For those students who do internship programs, some of these internship programs are paid. So what would be the threshold, or what is a cutoff point where they won't jeopardize, let's say, the financial aid that they're getting, especially if they are living on their own?
So the most of the paid internships are, again, the internships are either for the summer or semester. So there really is not a great deal of exposure if they're just doing an internship or two. I think if they're working full time or they're working while they're going to school, then that becomes part of their income. But that's something that they should discuss with their college person when they're in college. And my recommendation is that students definitely should start doing internships between their freshman and sophomore year in college. They shouldn't wait until their senior year, because not only is it, as you mentioned, an opportunity for them to meet people, but it's also an opportunity for them to confirm what their major selection is. Some students may think, I want to be an accountant and I want to work for a large CPA firm, and they get an internship and realize, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I want to be an artist, because the accounting is because what mom and dad want, not really what the student wanted. If that student has that experience during their senior year, there's very little time to kind of take a different course. If they do it early enough, they could then adjust their academic program. But to your point, every student should do at least one internship. And I think that the way that many of them are set up, it really doesn't negatively impact their financial aid award. Again, provided that it's part of their academic program.
That's great. Thank you. So there's a few other questions here. So this question is from Claudia Cardona. Would that be possible to apply for both federal grants and New York State grants as well? The answer is from Rizwana Kasar. Ms. Rizwana, if you want to answer.
Yes. So as long as a student qualifies for the criteria that we have mentioned in the presentation for federal and state aid, a student can apply for both.
Great. Okay, let's see.
Monica, if I could just make one comment on that. To families, apply for everything available. Don't say no to yourself. There are plenty of applications. Submit the applications. Let the institutions review your information. If you don't apply for aid or you don't submit the FAFSA or the CSS, they'll never know that you have need. So the only way to do it is to take advantage of every application that is available.
And also, don't be afraid of a high number, a high tuition number, right? You may get as much financial aid from a school with a high tuition figure as you would from a lower, because it's based on your need. And some schools may have a lot of scholarship assistance available. So, you know, shoot for the schools that you want to go to. You discuss the list together as a family. And there are many, many opportunities at private colleges in addition to the city colleges and universities.
All right, there's a question here. How does a 529 college savings plan impact financial aid?
Well, it's a way to pay. You have to report your 529 on your FAFSA. And it's a funding source for your student. It's like a bank account. One good thing with the 529 is that you can set them up for multiple children. And let's say you use all of the money in one for 529, or not, sorry, let me rephrase that. If you don't use all of the money in the 529 for one student, you can transfer that money over to one of your other children. The only thing to be careful of is if you take money out and it's not a cost that's defined with the program, you could pay a penalty. So you have to make sure that you use it for your tuition and other costs associated with your student program.
Great. Says here, can you speak on how to select a school within your budget and specifically how to compare the cost of different schools? I think, Lisa, you answered that.
Yes, the studentaid.gov website actually has information on it. And there was a PDF that was posted onto the website as well. So all I did was I had it in my bookmarks. But for those that are not able to see the chat, if you go to studentaid.gov and type in how to compare colleges, and it'll actually give you a whole PDF pamphlet of how to take the tuition and fees from different colleges as opposed to how much you're able to spend or how much you can afford, and then you'll be able to compare the colleges in that sense. I wish I can actually say it better than how I'm explaining it. Other than the chat, is there any other way I can share that information?
You can email it to me, and if they RSVP, we're going to send all of the links to everybody
Okay.
who RSVP, so that would be great.
Okay.
And in addition,
so I'll do that,
to
but definitely student aid. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. In addition to that, the federal government requires all colleges to have a net price calculator on their website. So the students and parents can actually find that net price calculator at the college's website and punch in their own figures, and then you can get a rough idea how much you're supposed to pay and how much you may be able to get. And I mentioned before, each college has its own financial aid policy, and some colleges would actually guarantee to meet your family needs. Some don't. This is actually the same as you apply to the college. Some are need blind. These schools are usually the schools that will meet your need 100%, 100% guaranteed. And some schools, such as NYU, does not make that promise because they don't have that big endowment to share with every single student. And that's a bit complicated, but all colleges are looking for the best students they can find. So this is actually a big encouragement for our students to work as hard as possible. And there are some scholarship programs that would actually cover your tuition and also your cost of attendance. And one of them is actually within our CUNY system. And that is called Macaulay Honors. Each college, well, there's 8 participating campuses. Queens College happens to be one of them. I believe there are about 60 slots for this group of students. If you get in Macaulay Honors, not only is your tuition waived, you also get a stipend and also a laptop to attend college. And there are not so many, but that's why it's so competitive. That is actually within CUNY system. And we also have some other scholarship programs I will just mention very briefly. In addition to that, we talked about HEOP and EOP. HEOP is a private program. EOP is a SUNY program. And the big emphasis is on the opportunity. Students really should go in there. Not only do you receive financial aid, you're also receiving academic assistance, tutoring, and so on and so forth. That's a program. It's not just a financial aid thing. We also have other private institutions that actually work with some organizations. One of those organizations is called Quest Bridge, QUEST and BRIDGE, questbridge.org. And that is associated with a lot of top colleges, all the top colleges excluding Harvard and Cornell. So these are the schools, these 2 schools do not associate with this, particular organization. When you are matched to a college on your list, you apply, your financial aid is basically covered. You can go to Columbia with an HEOP status. I'm sorry, with the QuestBridge status. And you can go to UPenn with QuestBridge, Yale QuestBridge, Dartmouth QuestBridge, and Stanford QuestBridge, MIT QuestBridge. You can go to those colleges and your tuition is basically covered. Their application is due very early. You need to apply to QuestBridge. QuestBridge is a medium, it's not a destination. QuestBridge will help you apply to schools. Their application is due at the end of September. So as soon as you start your senior year, you need to get ready to apply. So everything got to go in together. Your application with essays and your teacher recommendations, your counselor recommendation, your transcript, your school profile, everything has to come together. So the preparation is basically over the summer. You have to get everything completed by the end of the summer before you feel comfortable to put stuff in. There is another program. QuestBridge is a need-based scholarship. If you, they are looking for, with no better words to describe that, they're looking for outstanding students with outstanding financial needs, with an outstanding story. So they're looking for the best students they can find who have the family needs. There is another scholarship program that's called POSSE, P-O-S-S-E. That is actually, the headquarters located downtown Manhattan. It's part of the Wall Street area. And they only accept applicants from big city centers, such as New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, Austin, and those places. This is a leadership scholarship. They are associated, that association is associated with a number of private schools. And they are not associated with the top Ivy League schools, but they are associated with some of those very competitive schools, such as Babson College, that's one of the top business schools in Massachusetts, Middlebury, Bates College in Maine. These are probably not well known to a lot of people, but these are very competitive places. You go through.
Bates.
Okay, that's a great school. Bates is a great school in Maine. Actually, it's a very liberal place. And also at the same time, you need to be nominated by your high school, or you need to be nominated by a posse alumnus, or alumni, whichever that is. You cannot apply directly. You need to be nominated. For the QuestBridge, you can apply directly. You can apply questbridge.org. You can find out all the information that's associated. Since we're talking about financial aid, we're talking about money going to college. So these are the opportunities out there. Just like Mr. Alvarez said, there's a lot of money out there. The colleges are looking for the best students they can find.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wang. I have a question for Mr. Alvarez. What is the cutoff point in terms of income? You might have gone over it, but what is the income cutoff point before you can't really qualify for financial aid? And I'm talking about before the Excelsior program, because the Excelsior program, you can make $125,000. So for those who don't make $125,000, what is the income cutoff point where you don't qualify anymore?
So that is not an easy question to answer because it all depends. It's about family income, assets, and liabilities. Generally speaking, so this is not a cutoff. And remember, I'll preface this by saying that you could be earning $3 million, and if you want your child to get a student loan, they have to complete the FAFSA. So, and the CSS profile. So just keep that in mind. But generally speaking, for New York State TAP and Pell, I would say about an $85,000 family of four, which again, it's not a lot of money, but there really is not a cutoff. So I would encourage families, again, not to say no to themselves, but to complete either the FAFSA or if they're unable to do the FAFSA, to do the New York State forms.
Thank you. There's a question here. Can you talk about the options available to students who will need to work and pay for school out of pocket? Are there any specific programs to directly assist the student population? I believe this was answered by Rowana. All right, she put the students who don't qualify for federal and state grants can apply for federal student loans and scholarships. Okay.
I thought I was on mute.
Hi.
Sorry.
Okay, so are there any funding sources available only for undergrads? So is there anything for graduate students, people want to do their master's degree?
There's only institutional funding for graduate students outside of student loans. So depending if a student is applying to a PhD program, there might be assistantships that cover some of their costs or cover all of their costs. But for graduate education, basically it's just student loans. The one thing I'll say, since I'm with Queens College and we're here, is that at Queens College, we have created an accelerated master's option for our students, which allows them to take up to 12 graduate credits that satisfy their bachelor's degree requirements. They pay undergraduate fees and could use financial aid to cover it because it's part of their bachelor's. Once they graduate with the bachelor's degree, those 12 credits get transferred into their master's program at Queens College, which shortens the amount of time for them to receive the master's and minimizes the cost for the master's degree.
That's great, thank you. It says here, the average college application fee is approximately $50, with the most expensive schools having fees around $80 to $90. Many can't afford this, especially during this pandemic. How can they get past this barrier? I believe, Mr. Alvarez, you had answered that one in the chat.
Right. So my recommendation, and I think Mr. Wong talked about this earlier, that there are different benchmarks that students will meet. So the first source of information will be their college counselor, who has access to information about fee waivers, either being administered by the College Board or by the New York City Department of Ed. I know that over the last several years, the mayor's office has funded the application fee for a large number of New York City Department of Education students applying to CUNY. But the best source of information for the fee waivers is the college counselor at the high school.
The fee waivers, again, comes from your family income survey. If you are a free lunch or half price lunch student, then you're eligible for those fee waivers, including CUNY application, Common App fee waiver, as well as there is another fee waiver that's called NACAC, National Association of College Admission Counseling, that also has a fee waiver, that you can use the fee waiver to apply to those schools who do not use Common App. So can you still complete that survey? Yes, the answer is definitely yes. If your family financial situation has changed dramatically, DOE still allows you to complete that survey up to now. I have advised my students, of course, you need to complete that form. And the form is actually on DOE's website. You can actually search for family income survey. You can complete that. And there's an office in DOE that's going to evaluate your completion and then give you a status. And that status is going to be reported into the DOE's computer system, the ATS system. Then we'll be able to pick it up within 24 hours or so. So the income comes straight, the status, your fee waiver status comes straight from that source.
So follow-up question to that. What about most of the high schools, if not all of the high schools, had free lunch prior to this year, and lunch was available to every student in the city for pickup this year. So did they have to fill out those forms this year? And
we are talking about fee waiver. We're not talking about free lunch. If you're talking about free lunch, the city offers free lunch to every citizen.
Right.
But at the same time, we're talking about a fee waiver status. That fee waiver status is actually based on your lunch status. Yes, for a number of years, our students have been eating lunch for free, regardless of your lunch status, and you have lunch for free. But each person has a lunch status that's actually based on your family income survey.
Okay, so it was asked, that question actually was asked to me recently, and I said I didn't think this particular person would qualify. And she said, I'm getting free lunch, I should get a fee waiver. And I said, I don't think so.
Well, some of my students actually said, I received that form, I thought it was a random survey, I didn't complete it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a big encouragement for our students to complete that. And I said, this is not only important to the individual students, it is also important to the school.
Yeah.
So remember, parents, fill out those lunch forms, even though lunch is free, is important because it's very important for the school and for seeing here for the application process if they need a waiver for the fee, if anything. It's another question. Excelsior application. If the deadline was February 11th of 2021, does that mean that my son, who is starting at CUNY College in fall of 2021, cannot apply for the Excelsior for this fall semester?
And we've already answered that one. The answer is
right.
no.
But there's a lot of people
for
can't
this current year, right?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. So you said the February 1st date is for the admissions applications, not financial aid. The New York State Excelsior application for your son is still not available. Please check HES.com website for more details. Now, there's some parents here who want me to repeat the college savings plan website. So please grab a pen and paper and write it down. It's the college savings plan is NY. S as in Sam, A as in Apple, V as in Victor, ES.org, nysaves.org. And then for the loan forgiveness program, there's a few questions here on that. The email, the website is HESC, HES as in Sam, C.nyc.gov/loan-forgiveness. Now, if you go to Google and you just put New York State Loan Forgiveness Program, it'll pop up. Or if you go to Google and you put in New York State College Savings Plan, it will also pop up. So in case you didn't grab it in time, we're gonna email it as well, but you can always Google that information. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 more questions. Okay, is aid available for continuing education, parents looking to go back to college?
Great question.
Nandi? Sukai?
Okay, so for federal and state aid, as long as you're working towards your undergraduate degree, TAP and Pell is both eligible for individuals. Like stated earlier, for graduate, there's not so much of free aid awarded to them, but no matter if you're coming out of high school or you're an adult trying to continue education, as long as you have not earned your first bachelor's degree, you do still qualify.
Great. Do individual private colleges award scholarships based on merit or always need? Lisa? Or Mr. Alvarez?
Yeah, it's both. It depends. There are some that are based on need. There are others that are based on merit.
All right. Is there a set amount in your bank account that may make you ineligible for aid?
I'm sure there is, but
Yeah,
again,
they're gonna be putting money
it's
underneath the mattress, I see, some of these parents.
well, I think one thing that we want to kind of reinforce is that unfortunately in the United States, higher education is not free. There's a lot of support, but there is an expectation that the student and the family will have to contribute. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that through the multiple applications that we've talked about today, we find an opportunity for students to find support. And we have a lot of families that are small business owners who may have a lot of assets, but when they file their taxes, they report a very different kind of income. So part of the challenge is trying to determine what is really the need. But it is important that people share accurate information because, and particularly now with the federal government, it's matched to the IRS database. So it's, we want to support as many students as possible. And, but there is an expectation that the students and the family may have to contribute if they're not eligible for the aid that's available.
Okay, great. I just want to let parents know, because these are all very great questions and important topics. We're going to have a series. About 2 months ago, we had information on the colleges as well, CUNY, SUNY, and the private school. Mr. Wang was a part of that as well. And in the fall, we're going to actually have a virtual college fair with all of the CUNY, SUNYs, and private colleges. And we're going to do a workshop also for parents on the college admissions process. So please keep that in your radar. That's going to be in the fall Parent Advisory Board meeting. So one last question, and it's a good question. Let's see here. What is the process of appealing the financial aid merit offers if you need more financial aid before requesting for loans? From Mayla.
So I would say that alone as an argument is not a good one. Again, every college, and I think Mr. Wong talked about this before, every college has a different process. So it's really up to the student and the family to make the argument with that institution, to say, this is what we could afford, this is our circumstance, and can you help us a little bit more?
Also, some circumstances that they will look at is after you filed your financial aid form, if one of your parents lost their job, right? So that would change the financial situation that was reported on the form. Or someone got very ill during the year, so your medical expenses exceeded the limit that they have on the financial aid form. So there are a few things. I don't know if there's another specific, but definitely the job loss is looked at, and extenuating medical circumstances.
Agreed. And a reminder that the reason why the government and the colleges require that students apply for financial aid every year is also precisely the family situation may change between the first year and the second year. So we want to make sure that we have as much information as possible. And every college also has the ability, as was just mentioned, to reevaluate the information based on what was projected with the first FAFSA application, if the family situation occurred, changed after that. But it is important that students and families do their homework. Again, I want to go back to make sure that they access their college counselor, because he or she may have a particular contact in a college that could facilitate that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Albers. Now I'm just going to pass the meeting over to the Deputy Borough President for closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Monica. I just want to thank all of our guest speakers. I want to thank the parents, the students, the parent coordinators, the CEC members, the PTA members, our principals, our educators, and of course, I have to thank Alan, who's our Director of Government Affairs for DOE. I hope that this was informational, and again, you can rewatch this if you missed some of the program. There's just chock full of information here. So thanks again to all of the amazing staff on behalf of Borough President Donovan Richards. Please remember to wear your mask, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all.